We humans are small. We occupy just a tiny fraction of the entire universe. No matter what we do, humanity's impact on the future will ultimately be insignificant in the face of the infinite expanse. The more we learn about the world around us, the more sure we are that our existence is nothing but a cosmic accident. So what is the purpose even of living? Will anything we create have any lasting legacy? Is humanity's quest to survive ultimately futile? And if so, what should we focus on instead? These are all questions asked by existentialists. Existentialism attempts to answer the questions of whether our lives are important and how we should live our lives. The conflict between humans' natural tendency to try to find meaning in their lives and their inability to find any inherent purpose in a meaningless universe is referred to as the absurd. The absurd is often represented by the Greek figure Sisyphus, who is punished by Zeus to roll a boulder up a mountain, only for the boulder to slip away and fall down every time he nears the top. Absurdists observe that just like the boulder, any achievements humanity makes will ultimately be annihilated with time. What purposes of life and achievements should we go after? Wealth? Money is all subjective and is only worth as much as people think it is. What about power? How much influence is humanly achievable, and will it last? These both lose their meaning after we die. Advances in medicine and species survival could extend our purpose and longevity, but eventually even science and technology has its limits. Eventually, if nothing we do will last, what is the point of all this anyway? The underlying problem is that finding an inherent meaning or purpose in life requires an intersection between is and ought. Is describes the fundamental nature of the world, while ought describes how things should be. In order to find purpose in life, we need to know what the state of our lives truly are, and find a way to live our lives. But knowing what the world is doesn't automatically tell us anything about how it should be. We must find a way to put them together into our life philosophy. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard thought the best solution was to embrace religion, spirituality, or some faith, specifically Christianity in his instance. This, he said, would give life meaning in spite of life's apparent lack of one. Not only does religion give one the moral guidance required of purpose, it also describes the nature and reality of the world with great precision. But precision doesn't equate to accuracy. Critics would say that the ought of purpose has supplanted the is and merely attempts to answer questions about reality it's not really equipped to answer. On the other hand, ascetics like Arthur Schopenhauer declare any goal or desire we fulfill ultimately meaningless due to its temporary nature. Existential pessimists realize pleasure is never permanent the way suffering is, so they remove ethics and what we ought to do from the equation altogether. Instead, they focus on reducing suffering by losing all desire. One major plus for this school of thought is that it's generally in line with reality. But instead of removing action from their worldview, ascetics may simply be endorsing a similarly futile desire to be rid of desire. Another alternative some philosophers think of is suicide. This solution chooses neither the objective reality nor the subjective experience. Instead, one who commits suicide recognizes life's lack of meaning and surmises a lack of reason to continue living. A quick recognition of reality for suicidal absurdists is enough to convince them they want no part of it. It may raise moral questions about whether murder is truly evil or whether childbirth is actually okay, but the dead are sure we'll come around to their lack of perspective in due time. But none of the options presented so far give us a great way to embrace our lives as they are. Maybe we've been asking the wrong question. Why do we need one worldview to give life direction? If the objective and subjective are inherently separate, perhaps we shouldn't be trying to find one system that can perfectly match both. If we want to tackle these problems separately, we already have science to deal with reality. So we need to find a source of fulfillment not bound by or disruptive of our knowledge of the world. This is where art comes in. Unlike religion, art makes no quantitative statements of the world, nor does its value come from impact or longevity. On the contrary, pure art, like music, can be enjoyed live, lasting only as long as the performance itself. Music has little inherent rational value, but we can enjoy and find beauty in it anyway. Perhaps what makes art so great is that it reflects the truth that value has absolutely nothing to do with reality. And that truth is valuable. The overall message isn't profound. In some ways, we've known it all along. The world doesn't owe you anything, and it never has. But in that same way, you don't owe the world anything either. In the end, nothing matters at all. No need to acquire wealth or power. No need to build towards something greater. That gives us the ultimate freedom. For as little as we are, nothing can ever convince us that happiness isn't good. Whether your legacy is creating art, practicing medicine, or providing education, happiness should be our only goal. We can find beauty in almost anything, natural or technological. So this is how I define art: the defiance and celebration of the meaningless. If you like the original music, pick up my soundtrack for free, and check out my YouTube channel. Beyond Philosophy is an uncensored exploration of everyday life and current events from a philosopher's perspective. We explore topics such as why time travel is completely useless, and we analyze the political compass test, question by question. Hope to see you there.
I'm and I approve this message.